Hey guys, welcome to the stream. Welcome to the. I guess this will be part one of today's stream. We're gonna have another stream tonight at 4 p.m. That's Central Time. But today we have a special guest, JC. How's it going, man?
It's going very well. Very happy to be with you guys. Very nice to having me, and I'm looking forward to the very interesting discussions and questions. So thank you very much.
Definitely, definitely. Thank you so much for joining us. We also have Yama, as always. Yama. Oh, guess not. We also have Master Red.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Yeah, and Wilkes.
Hello.
Hope everyone's
Honored to
doing
be here.
excellent. Hope
Quite
everyone's
well.
good, good. Glad to hear it. Let's go ahead and get things started. JC, so let's talk about the Kickstarter for a second.
Oh yeah, so it's going wonderfully, and I wanted to take the opportunity to thank you, all our backers. Thank you guys. Who I know some of you have already backed. So thank you for those who took the opportunity to do this. This is amazing. We still need all your support. We're not quite there yet, so we need to go further, but it's going incredibly well. We are past the 60% mark right now. I'm looking at 309 something thousand. So this is looking very good. I'm confident that we can achieve that. Um, I think there are some patterns, in Kickstarter that should allow us to be confident. But it's still not done, and we might be a special case where the patterns break. So let's keep pushing this and speak about everybody. That's also why I'm here, so as many people can hear about this game, because whenever I have the opportunity to explain what we have in mind, usually people get very excited and very interested. So that's it. Thank you very much, guys. Now it's time for questions and getting to the meat of what we have in mind for this game. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Definitely glad to be a backer of that. Let's go ahead and get started with the questions. Our first question is about the roadmap and what
Yeah.
is the current goal for the roadmap and what requirements do you have to complete before you release the alpha?
Yeah, so there's actually several levels. There is the what we hope to achieve for the initial release, which is basically what we have put in the starting goal of the Kickstarter. So I'm not going to list all those things; it's on the Kickstarter page. But that's what we aim for the release, and then comes the question of what are we going to squeeze in for the alpha, which is set to be in the first half of 2017. I don't want to give precise date because it will put pressure on us. Uh, while actually what we want to do is to put enough things in the alpha so that we can have both something that is substantial in terms of fun, so it makes sense. There's a game loop that works, but also that has some of the things we want to test because they are complicated and not easy to predict how they are going to evolve through the actions of the players. So what should be in the alpha, because otherwise it doesn't make sense, considering what kind of game we're making, is building, probably not with all the features you could dream of for building, but the necessary basis so that you can build stuffs. um, there should be also a way for people to actually gather materials, so there will be mining, and there will be probably a form of scanning that allows people to locate the materials. um, that's the core thing. You gather materials and you build things. You will need also to be able to craft, but we may be able to bypass this by having market implemented, so that you could basically buy whatever you cannot yet craft from bots, I mean NPCs, that would sell them for you. So that's the basis. And then once you have made a ship, for example, or anything that you find nice, then you should be able to make a blueprint. We have already prototype implemented for that already, so I'm pretty confident it can go to the alpha. So you can make a blueprint and you can reproduce what is in this blueprint through a factory, so that we could start to see the dynamics of the market and the user generated content. Something that is very important is that when people mention user-generated content, usually people are afraid, and they are rightfully afraid, that the content will not be of very high quality overall in general, right? And the right answer to that is the market, so that you have the best things that get actually sold in quantity, and the market is selecting out what is best, what people really like, because it sells. And because it sells, people will make more copies of it, right? It's a bit like an evolutionary dynamics, like in biology, evolution, right? You have reproduction, you have mutations and selection. So this is a very powerful mechanism to create complex things, basically out of nowhere. So complex constructs, complex shapes, and beautiful things. So we want to test that. And I think this would be really the minimal thing you should have in the alpha. Then, if we have time, we might actually have a bit of combat territory and things like that. But this is certainly is not guaranteed for the alpha. We'll see what we can do.
Awesome. Sounds amazing. Can't wait to get in there. All right.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, what happened to the balloon ships from the lore and early dev blog? Are there still plans to have them?
Oh yeah. Well, this is a very nice idea actually. And what happened is that we stopped talking about it because we were focused on spaceships. Because when you want to talk about a game like that, you want to talk about spaceships. That's the thing that attracts the most attention. And it simply was out of scope at some point. But I think this feature is technically not a big challenge to implement. And I think it makes a lot of sense because it's a sort of intermediary point between a hovercraft and a proper spaceship, or even an atmospheric ship, which is basically an airplane in a sense. So that would be a very interesting low tech intermediary thing that we will try to squeeze in. The way it's going to be done is not set. One idea I could have is that you would have a certain type of material that maybe if you power it or something will actually exert force upwards. So it will not be a gas, because this is not something you can do easily with voxels, but it would be like a solid sort of floating thing that you can put on your construct. There will be obviously limits, because we don't want to have huge things that would bypass all the other tech we have in mind for large structures floating, like the anti-gravity units and things that we have in mind for the long-term features. Uh, it's not going to go, probably not in the initial release. I'm talking about game vision. So I think this can actually be done, and it's a pretty good idea. So we didn't talk about it anymore because, well, it went out of scope basically.
Okay, for the third question, this one has actually had several of us wondering. Will we be able to build under the water, and will there be a way for us to pump out water out of this area, or constructs for that matter?
Okay, so that we don't have, we didn't put any thought into that. It makes sense, and I totally understand. I mean, the interest in terms of gameplay, it would be very cool, but this is not something we have given any thought. Actually, there would be perhaps three types, I mean, three levels of types of features. Those who are core, we're sure we're going to do them. We have a very good idea how we're going to do them, and this I can speak about them easily. Usually they're going to be more or less in the release, these kind of things. There's an intermediary set of features which is not so well defined, that probably will not make it to the release, but will be added in an expansion, because we plan on having expansions, free expansions. People are asking sometimes. It will be free because everybody has to play with the same client. It's a single shard universe. It cannot be paying extensions in a single shard universe. It just doesn't make sense. So you will have expansions that will actually add more functionalities to the game. Typical example is Stargates, that will most likely not be in the initial release. They will come as an expansion, maybe 6 months or 1 year after the first release of the game. So that being said, this is the second category of features. Like I like to talk about them, but it's more about the game vision, and I would not like people to think that they will be in the release and then be disappointed. So it's very important for us to communicate very clearly on that. And then there's the third level, which is, oh yeah, it's a good idea. Never thought about that. Maybe I have an idea of how we could perhaps implement it. Okay, this is not in the roadmap. I can't make any promise of any kind. Um, and I think building underwater is this kind of thing. I could improvise about the way we could do this, and there would be very good ideas, I think, but it's not in the roadmap and it's not defining for the game. It's okay if you cannot do that, it doesn't break the game, right? So we cannot do everything. So this is a very good candidate for a feature postponing, let's say, so that we can concentrate on the core things that are necessary to make this game what it is. Um, okay, so I would probably say the same kind of thing for other features that you that you asked that are kind of cool, but we don't have anything in the roadmap for it so far.
Okay, awesome. So next question. Will there be weather in Dual Universe? Will it be dynamic? Will weather affect players and constructs in any kind of way?
Exactly same answer as before. It's not in the roadmap. It's a cool idea. I could elaborate on many ways we could implement that. It's obviously not completely easy because you have a real planet. So suppose we have a hurricane or rain somewhere, you should see the clouds, right? Matching that if you're in space. I think it's otherwise it breaks the immersion. So it's not as easy as in a single player game or things like that where you just have a graphical effect, where you have rain falling in front of you and that's fine. Um, it has a more, it's more complicated because we are simulating a universe basically. So cool idea, interesting. We will one day we will look into this probably because yes, there could be effects on the players and on the constructs, and we could also have effects. I don't know, for example, if you have solar panels, right? You could imagine that this affects their efficiencies and so on and so on. We could go into a discussion about that, but it's not in the roadmap.
Awesome, awesome.
Sorry to disappoint, but
Oh
you
no,
know,
don't worry, no disappointment here.
the thing is that what I'm saying is that we are realistic and well, we are already crazy ambitious, in fact. So uh, we have to make choices, and that's a good thing. That's how we could have a chance to actually do it, right? Um, if I would say yes, yes, yes to every thing, then that would turn out very bad. And we know what happened recently in the video game, and we don't want to go that way. We're already ambitious enough, so people are are very I would say, I mean, they are the doubts, about what we claim, and we perfectly understand that, right? So we're ambitious. We have a lot of good things already in the pipe. So we're going to say no to a few things, at least for the moment, keeping in mind that it's an MMO and there's a future to it, hopefully, and that we'll have more and more things as
As
time.
long as you plan on putting it in the future, I have no problem whatsoever.
We're also going to listen to the community. If there's a massive demand for that feature, it will obviously go higher, in the priority, and will get implemented in an update, in an expansion sooner. If there's just a few players who mention it from time to time, if we like it, and personally I like it, we may do it, but we will adjust the priority also based on what people really want. Makes sense.
Exactly, you got to do what your community wants.
Okay, then.
Yeah.
Well, for question number 5, we have this. What are some ways you may attempt to tackle the issue of air inside ships and the lack of air outside of them? Will we be able to walk airships without wearing masks?
Okay. It's a bit the same kind of answer again, but it turns out I've thought about it, so I can say a few things about how it may be implemented one day. So not for release, most likely. Um, it cannot be. I mean, I don't see any easy computational way to do it in a realistic way, so that you will actually look for a leak in a closed structure and let some kind of simulation of air flowing out of it. Uh, for one reason is that the size of the structure we're talking about is in principle unbounded in our case. So you may have to check for huge structures, I mean, volumes that are large, like this space station we are showing in our videos. Every time somebody is removing a piece of voxel, we would have to check for, how the whole is actually preserved, or if there is a actually some if there's a hole actually in the structure. So I think this would be incredibly expensive computationally. So I don't think we could do that. What we could do is, for example, have a particular element that creates a bubble of air. I mean, sort of area where air is there. So as long as you're inside this bubble, you're fine. And then you could get this element destroyed. So that would create areas where you need to wear a mask, for example, that needs some consumable. So it is a pain that you have to manage. So of course you prefer to have your system working. So we could do things like that, I imagine, by having something realistic that would actually calculate, the connexity of volumes. This is probably too expensive computationally. And the same goes, by the way, about connexity of voxels that you may actually break into two parts. Like a huge mountain that you slice off the planet. Would it actually fall? No, for the same reason, mostly, that we would have to constantly calculate the connexity and so on and so on. So things will float like in Minecraft if you cut them off the ground. That's it. And that's okay. That's we break some rules of physics, but that's necessity, I think, for the game to be something we can implement.
Okay, for our next question, will Novaquark be providing an API for developers to build third-party applications using the live game data? And might our Lua be able to provide information through that API?
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, that's an excellent idea. I think that's also what Eve Online is doing, and I think it's brilliant. So, will we have time to do this for the release? I'm not sure, but definitely this is something we will want to do because hopefully it will create a lot of apps and softwares that will be usable by players outside of the game, and I think it's a pretty good idea. So we will try to implement that. Whether it will be connected to Lua, I have no idea. It's always a question of server load and things like that. So I did not think enough about this feature to tell you, but it could be, yeah, it could be. We might find interesting, way. But Lua also, as you know, I'm sure you know, is something is going to run on your machine, and you need to be logged in, and you need to be near the control unit that will host the Lua script. So if you want something that is basically available for anybody on the internet, your computer would become, if it's Lua who is mastering everything, probably become like kind of a server, or you would have to be connected all the time. So I'm not so sure, honestly. I think this is not clear. But the idea of an API, yeah, it's a good idea. I think we will implement that at some point.
Definitely. I can't wait for something like Evemon to pop up for Dual Universe. That
Exactly.
would be epic.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or EFT. I love those two programs. They're must-haves for Eve.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. Next question. Will there be items in the game so rare that perhaps only a handful of people have them, such as discovered items, perhaps elements, something of that nature?
I don't think we will do something like that. There's definitely nothing, planned for that. My concern would always be, to break the balance of the game so that few people would have advantage over others. It could be um, perhaps a way. There could be a way, to actually um, give you access to certain type of technology through certain type of exploration that will actually let you unlock certain blueprints, for example. But it will be available for whoever is spending the necessary time to explore and find them also. It will be another way to get access to this kind of rare blueprints. Um, as opposed to getting them on the markets from NPCs or bots, for example. So there will be more, instead of buying them directly on the markets, you will find them. Of course, people will sell them afterwards, but they will be very expensive, I suppose, because they will be rare and difficult to get. But I think, one design principle is player equality. We should have every opportunity should be in some way available to every player. So if you make one item that only one guy can get, you break that. So, but I don't know every possible games, and maybe some game has made this in a great way, and I'm not aware of it. So, if so, let me know. We can probably discuss about that at some point later. But my intuition on that is player equality or equity. I would say like they are treated the same.
Yeah, then the only games that I could really think of that does something similar to that would be something like Eve or Guild Wars or something
Mm.
close to that. Can't really think of anything else.
Okay, well, I missed that part in Eve, I suppose.
Okay. For our next question, we have: will there be in-game holidays similar to how World of Warcraft celebrates Halloween, Christmas, etc. in the game?
No, I don't think so. For one simple reason, there's also a principle I would like to enforce, is that I want Dual Universe to be something completely disconnected from the real world. It's sort of a parallel alternative reality that has no connection whatsoever with the real world. Of course, people will talk about things of the real world. You can chat about whatever you want, but we are not going to inject elements that comes from the real world into Dual Universe, and that will be one of them. What is Halloween in the world of Dual Universe? It just doesn't exist. So we want to create a world that you can live another life in it. Something that is completely different. So we don't want any interference from the real world or real money or things like that. Everything is shielded from the real world or advertisement. Some people are afraid of things like that. That would be absurd because there's no Coca-Cola in Dual Universe, right? So uh, even though you may say that this comes from human culture, but it's 500 years from now that people escape the Earth. The culture is very different, and on top of that, 10,000 years of cryo sleep, where people basically lost all the event memory and details like that. So I don't think this would make sense from the backstory point of view as well.
Okay, for our next question, what is the smallest level of detail that we can? Will we be able to make smooth surfaces like large rounded or smooth wings, or will everything be blocks and spheres?
Oh no, no, you can actually make smooth surfaces. That's a real cool thing about the voxel technology we use. The voxel technology is called dual contouring. It's nothing to do with the name of the game. It happens to be dual contouring because it is related to the concept of duality in mathematics. But the thing is, this technology allows people to have smooth surfaces and not only cubes or spheres and things like that, with a limit, of course, which is the resolution. So you're asking what is the smallest level of detail. That is going to be 25 centimeters on player-made constructs, and it's going to be 1 meter on the planet. At least these are the values we are comfortable with for the moment in terms of load. It may change, but I don't think so. But it may change, if we have performance issues or things like that. But it's already very good. 25 centimeters is pretty nice. And we are going to release at some point a video explaining, the technology and explaining. It's not going to be a course, but it's going to give some hints of how this is actually implemented. To give you an idea, I think a game like EverQuest Landmark is using the same algorithms, the same approach, which is a classical thing. I mean, it's just at SIGGRAPH for many years. It's something that works very well. Um, and it has the property that you can have both smooth surfaces, but also sharp angles, which some other voxel technologies cannot handle. For example, marching cube, which is another famous algorithm, does only smooth stuffs. It cannot have sharp, like cubes actually easily in this. So short answer, yes, you can have smooth things. You can really sculpt. We will have to develop some dedicated tools for people to smooth things and help to really be like a sculptor. Tools that will probably not be all implemented at start. We will have some of them, but we will keep adding more and more possibilities for you to do basically what you want in terms of shapes.
Very nice. Can't wait. So, what are some of the narrative influences that you have for Dual Universe, such as books, movies, other media?
Mm.
I know that you're basing a lot of it off of Eve and other games such as that, but what other types?
Yeah, well, in terms of games, personally, I played a lot of Eve and a lot of Minecraft, to name those two games. And I think both are fantastic games, and they both had a sort of a weak point in a sense. In Eve is that all the content you are going to see. I'm not talking about the social content, which is of course made by the community, but I mean the ships and the things that you can encounter is more or less the same. It's made by the people at CCP. So there is no sense of real surprise in the kind of ships you can see and the environment, which doesn't is it's not a limit of the game itself. I mean, the game has so many other aspects that it's playable without that aspect. But for me, I wanted to be able to see things, to arrive in some system and discover a space station that is completely different from everything else I've ever seen. Right. And I got that, of course, in Minecraft because I could make anything I want and I could visit servers to see things and be surprised. But it was not an MMO in the proper sense of it. I mean, like a single shard, like everything Eve is actually. So what we're trying to do is to combine these two ideas, make more possibilities on the shaping of things on the Minecraft side using the technology I just described. So to go away from the cubes and things, but that's basically the inspiration. Now, in terms of books and movies, um, in the team we are all big fans of sci-fi. I could cite a lot of things. Personally, I like very much. In terms of movies, I like Blade Runner. I like 2001. But saying that this has a direct influence in Dual Universe is a bit stretched. I mean, I don't know. It's just my taste, I would say. In terms of book, I read one which is pretty good, which is called Ready Player One. I think some of you might know it, which is very nice. And I think maybe there are some ideas that are shared between this book and what we're doing. Um, I'm a big fan also of someone that is not so well known, I think, but it's called Greg Egan, and this guy is doing hard science, and I think this is making amazing things about virtual worlds and simulated environments, and it creates amazing novels in that kind of settings, and it's pushing the limits on the science side, trying to look at the science and make it realistic, and I like that. My background is in science, so I guess this explains it. And I think in Dual, we would like to have a fairly realistic world with all the limits, of course, that that comes from what I just said before. The things are going to float over over the. I mean, if you cut a part from the ground, it will still float, or things like that. And also, there will be some things that doesn't make sense from a scientific point of view, but we have put those things for the gameplay, and gameplay, of course, is priority over realistic physics or dynamics. But I think I like this idea of trying to be as close as possible to science, and so that you could believe in it somehow, and it can inspire you. And at some point, you think, maybe this could be true. Actually, maybe this is going to be like that. I really like that. So these are the influences, some of them.
Awesome. So I heard, did you play vanilla Minecraft or did you play modded Minecraft or both?
Both. In the modded Minecraft, I played something called Industrial Craft, that you might not
Oh,
know. And I think this is really cool, and we will probably again, maybe not at release and so on, but I mean, in the long-term view, I would like to have something that is fairly complex on the industry side, so that you could have chemistry, refining, and all sorts of intermediary machines that you need to build, so that building an industrial production chain would be quite an impressive thing, and so this kind of ideas are extremely inspiring. Um, Again, not probably not in the release of the game. I'm saying that all the time, but I mean we have to be clear. And but this is the kind of things we like, and I liked a lot.
Awesome, awesome. Did you ever play any of the FTB packs?
That,
Any of
that's
the mod
exactly
packs?
that's exactly the one I used. Yes.
Yes. Awesome.
mm,
So we share the same culture apparently, the
Yes.
same background. I mean,
everyone has a root in Minecraft. Well, for our next question, there was a mention of fan fiction guidelines being released. When might we see some of those surface?
uh, I would like it to be sooner, but it's a lot of work, and we simply didn't have time to go this way so far. So yes, we will do this because we would like to give basic guidelines so that people can go and create stories. We have already done a bit of it. There is a short story by Alain Damasio that I recommend reading. I'm sure you all have read it. Some of the things in this short story are going a bit away from the main axis of the game. There will be differences. I mean, it's not. It's the creativity of Alain Damasio that is speaking there. Uh, but we would like to actually make some guidelines, yes, so that we could have more creative people contributing to the either the backstory or imagining things that could actually happen in the game. It takes time if you want to do it properly. Right now, we are in the Kickstarter and everything, and I would like to be involved in this. So everything that involves me gets delayed all the time because I'm doing so many things, right? So this is one of those things that I would love to make advance a bit faster. But so far, we don't have it. We should have it at some point. I will let you know. As soon as we can work on that seriously, then we can release something good and start to have fan fictions.
Okay, for the next question, will we unlock new elements, blueprints, by simply acquiring the right skills, or will elements, blueprints be discovered by some yet to be discussed means?
So as I've started to say a little bit before, for elements, first of all, the proper term would probably be schema. Blueprint is related to construct, right? So a construct has a blueprint, and an element will have a schema. And so about how you acquire schemas is going to be through the markets, probably through NPCs who are going to sell them to you. You will have you will need a certain skill to be able to run them and use them. We actually may have, as I hinted, we may have some kind of very rare schemas that are obtained in a different way, so that it gives motivations for the explorers. That will be part of the many things the explorers can actually uncover through a mechanism that we have not yet decided. But there's a very creative and very nice idea from Alain Damasio in his novel, where you would be interacting with some kind of forms that involves also music and sound. I mean, there's a lot of ideas we could have on this. That's not the problem. But whether this can be implemented at the beginning, I don't think so. We will stick with simple NPCs to start with, and we'll progressively implement maybe these extra new ways of acquiring certain types of schemas later on.
Awesome. And this game, I keep getting more and more excited by the second, I swear.
Great.
It really is. I cannot wait to get into that alpha.
You
I'm
can't
gonna
resist
nope. I'm gonna break your game so much. I hope you know that.
Well, good. That's also what the alpha is for. I hope that the alpha is not populated only by people who are behaving and very nice. I mean, we would love to have a representative set players. I'm not calling for total chaos. I think you don't need to call for it. It comes pretty naturally. So we will test in particular the things like safe zone and things like that. Um, so anyway,
Yep.
you're
Yep.
welcome.
All right. So next question. How will trespassers be treated? Can you stop anyone from entering your territory, or are they just flagged? I know that in one of the blog posts you actually mentioned that you could stop people from going into your territory with the RMDS, I believe it was. So how
That
will that system work?
Yeah, that was probably a miscommunication from me. I don't think you can stop people from entering because you would basically be able to, lock people like in sort of jails by having territories all around them that will not let them go, right? I think the proper way, we've been thinking a bit more about that, and the proper way is to just let people cross the border, but they get flagged, and because they are flagged, they might be fired upon. Basically, this kind of mechanics. So that's I think the proper way to do it. If you want to prevent people to enter into a certain area, that could include your construct, like your castle or whatever. Probably the right way to do this is to create a sort of protection bubble that will actually physically prevent people from entering. But this thing can be broken. It's an aggression. It's something deliberate. It's not easy to do, and so on and so on. So that's the state of thinking at the moment. That you will be free to actually enter areas where you're not welcome. Of course, you will be notified that well, you're doing something you should not do. So if you do it by accident, you have a certain time to react and step out. Um, but that's the idea. I think that's the proper way to handle that.
Awesome. Yeah, I was a little bit confused about that.
Yeah. Otherwise, how do you actually conquer a territory if it's about disabling the territory unit or hacking it or things like that? How do you do this if you cannot just approach it? And so this will create also sort of indestructible barriers. So it's like the absolute, shield. So that would be too easy. That would break, I think, a lot of things in the.
Okay, then. Well, for our next question, we have: can we claim land around the Ark ship within the safe zone? Will there be a land rush at launch for that territory?
Hmm. Okay, I think the land rush will probably happen, but we will limit it by the fact that it's very, very hard to actually get a territory unit. So it's not like you could get your 10 territory units in 20 minutes of playtime and just go and collect your territories, right? So it will be something very expensive. So once you have one, you think carefully before using it. Um, but there will be, yes, there will be perhaps more interesting areas. It will not be within the safe zone. We're talking within the safe zone, right? So within the safe zone, there will not be any valuable ore or anything to mine that is really substantial. Perhaps even nothing at all. Just stupid rocks or things like that. I mean, or things so people don't have any reason to actually start to mine in this area. So the reason why you would like to save a territory in the safe zone is to actually create a certain area for your friends so that you can control who is allowed to build, and a little bit of the policy and how things are going to look inside this area. And if you think about the size of the safe zone, the idea we have at the moment is about 20 kilometers, and the area that this represents is about I think 1,000 square kilometers. So basically, roughly 1,000 territory um, tiles. So that's a lot already. And in the long run, so I don't know when this is going to be implemented again, but the vision is that you can trade territories. So there will be a real estate market where some perhaps some powerful organizations will want to have their tile within the safe zone of the arc ship to actually show their might. And so your territory will probably start to be very, very expensive, and it will be an asset you will want to sell at some point because you don't really care about it yourself. So I think the long-term dynamics is that probably this territory will be occupied by kind of powerful organizations that want to have them to recruit or to welcome newcomers. That is the dynamics I could imagine. It could be completely different from that. It's difficult, of course, to know how these complex systems evolve, but that's the vision. So yes, I think you will be able to secure territories within the safe zones. It will not give you an advantage in terms of resource or anything. And there will be a lot of them, and it will be very hard to make a territory unit anyway. So it's not like one player in about one evening, is going to cover the whole area. That's not going to happen.
Okay, for our next question. Will there be territory in space? Perhaps borders, beacons that act like borders notifying when someone or something crosses?
Okay, so we are in the third stage of a feature that is something we discuss at coffee, but we don't have any defined plan at the moment. The way it could be implemented, in my view, is that it should be that you have territories on the planet, right? And after a certain amount of territory is secured by a given organization, that could be an alliance of other organizations, like I don't know, Europe, and different countries, right? So at some point, if you cover a certain percentage of the planet, then this planet overall becomes a territory, but an administrative territory, or becomes the sort of property of this organization. While of course all the other territories that are secured on it remain in control. So there's a several level, system, and so it would be like this planet globally belongs to organization X or Y, and then um, a certain space around the planet would also be considered managed by this organization. And then you could have several planets that belong to this organization, and at some point, there's a threshold that says, okay, this system globally belongs to this organization. This kind of idea, so you have not micromanagement of space areas where that it gets very complicated to visualize and things like that. This system is very difficult to set up. So we are far from. I mean, everything I said might change completely. Maybe I did not notice something very problematic. Um, the way also this threshold should be handled is a mechanism that is called a hysteresis. So that, for example, if it's at 70%, you need 70% to get it. But if you go below 70, you don't lose it immediately. You need to go below 60, for example, so that you don't have a constant switch of owners of a given planet, for example. And we need to precise more, how things are happening for people on this planet that are have nothing to do with this organization X, but that happens to be on a planet that is globally controlled by X. So how would we handle that politically? These are the questions that are not solved, but I don't think it would be a good idea to have micromanagements of uh, volumes in space that people will have to claim and things like that. I think the core system will be the territory on the planets for territory units, and from there we will try to expand to make sense of ownership in space in general and in the galaxy at a larger scale. In a larger scale. So these are discussions, right? And there's nothing set. Of course, we will have to handle that in the long run. That's another way to answer that. I think we will need to be able to, have some kind of galactic scale power map.
Yeah, we're not going to be getting into space like immediately anyway. So
That's exactly it. So to make it clear, the vision we have for the release is that people will start to first build the first and then from there they will start to be able to unlock technologies to go at the faster than light, so warping to other planets. So they will start to explore, the solar system, and only when we release the expansion that gets to Stargate, then we start to explore more and more solar system, if you want, and then the galaxy is going to be discovered progressively. So this is going to be a long process, and we want it that way because we want that the exploration is meaningful, that it's an achievement, that it is difficult, that it's an incredible, success and achievement and feeling for people to actually unlock a Stargate to a new system and say we have been to where nobody else has gone yet. This kind of ideas, which is very different from what other games do, where you have immediately access to everything. Um, that is fine for a single player game, I suppose, but when you plan on making a game like Dual Universe that is meant to last for many years, if everything goes as we hope, um, I think it's very important that you have this sense of progression, achievement, and space conquest, basically. Um, so yeah, Stargates and politics of control of the galaxy. These are things that will come later because of that, and also because we cannot implement everything uh, in the first initial release. This is also a way for us to control and stage the development of the game.
Awesome. So I believe our producer Yamamushi, he actually has a question for you.
Sure.
Has Novaquark considered something similar to the Council of Seller Management from EVE Online or any other player organizations like that?
I think it's a good idea, but I did not follow myself very closely. What happens with the CSM in Eve, whether it gets positive feedback from the community or not. Would you say it's a success on your side?
Oh yeah, most certainly. In recent years, perhaps their influence has been dwindling, but
Mm.
I think it definitely gets the community involved behind something.
That's what I like. I mean, as you've seen, I mean, we are very interested in getting the feedback of the community. We've tried to open as many doors as possible so this can happen. So along that line, something like the CSM makes a lot of sense, probably. And so I would say yes, why not? This is a pretty good idea. We would have to look, about how it's happening in Eve to learn from the things that works, the things that do not work well. It has to be representative of the players. That's the challenge, I suppose, right? Some players are silent, but they are a majority, perhaps. So how would they get a proper representation so that their ideas and their interests are represented? I think this is the tricky part. Um, we may come up with something completely different that involves some website, a community website. I don't know, but getting the feedback of the community is the most important thing for us and for me. We want to interact with you guys.
Awesome. So on to the next question.
Yep.
Will there be a way to automate turrets for security and area denial? And if so, will we have a way to mark players as hostiles so the turrets can engage them on site?
Okay, so there are two questions. Can we mark players? Yes. And that's would be a very important thing that you can actually have tags associated to any player. And that's also one of the way the right and duty management system will function. So based on those tags, the system will be able to decide whether you have the right to do certain things with certain elements or certain assets in the game, right? So that part of the answer is definitely yes. Whether we will have automated turrets, most likely not at start. But the real question, that we have to solve, and maybe there's no good solution for that, is to make sure that there's always a huge advantage of having humans doing things in the game. Otherwise, you turn the game into an automated game, and there are bots everywhere, and nobody really plays because why would you play? You're so inefficient compared to all these automated things, right? So that applies to mining, for example, and that applies to combat. So could we actually do something like you can automate turrets, but they are maybe, I don't know, 10 times less efficient than whatever average human would do. Would that be sufficient so that you have a large ship that um, you have a choice, between having all these threats automated or having actual people handling them. And then you would obviously want to have the people because the automated turrets would be so inefficient that you need basically 10 times more of them. And then it costs 10 times more of ammunitions. So you're 10 times less efficient than anybody else who has humans in it. But still, you could do it if you really want to go that way. It's a choice. Is that something that stands? These are difficult questions because maybe some organizations will become so powerful that they really don't care about the cost of ammunition. They don't care about anything like that, and so ultimately they will automate anyway. And so that is not clear. This is a complex issue. I think we want. My answer is we want that uh, player activities are always meaningful. That even the smallest thing that maybe would be good for a beginner who enters the game actually remains interesting and meaningful for these kind of players, so that they have something to start with in the game. For a good example is mining. Right? If we automate mining, then who's going to mine? It's going to be so inefficient than for a human to do it. Right? That you kill this simple activity for newcomers who would like to make a bit of money. Uh, so that is my answer. I don't know if we could actually automate. It would be nice, obviously, that you could have an automated defense around your castle, so that whoever approaches who is not welcome could get fired at. But how could we prevent to escalate this into automating combat completely in the game? And that is the challenge. It's not going to be something we tackle, I think, at release. So we have time to keep discussing about that um, and dig into the side effects of these kind of decisions.
Yeah, we've actually got a few questions from chat that are actually getting quite interesting if we have time for that after we're done with
All
the
right.
the main questions.
Let me try to go faster on the answers. I speak too much, I think. So let me try to be more, precise. I think you got the key ideas. That we are thinking about a lot of things in the future. We're focusing on certain things for the release. So let's go along this line and try to answer as many questions as possible. Let's go.
Definitely, definitely. All right. So next question: will players have their names above them, or will they have an or will you have to interact with them in order to have them identified to you?
The way it's done at the moment is that they have their name on top of their head. Plus, also, we will make it possible that you can add visual information depending on their tags so that you can actually get a quick information about who is there. We might have something that scrambles it so that you need a particular unscrambler so that you can actually access that, but then it's not clear. It's interesting. The thing is that anonymity is the synonymous with paranoia. So if you let people be completely anonymous, I think it might actually turn everybody into paranoid, and it's better to be transparent on that aspect. I think that's at the moment anyway. The plan is to have the names. Yes.
Okay. Well, for our next question, we have: will there be player run banks where players can store money in a physical location, like cargo, or is money purely digital?
Money is purely digital, and we hope to be able at some point to implement the game mechanics that allow people to actually create banks. Yes, that will be really great and important for the economy. Um, so we may need to implement particular mechanics. So this might come in an expansion at some point. I don't know, but yeah, and money is completely immaterial. You cannot lose your money if you are killed, for example. These kind of things. So short answer.
Okay.
Okay, for this next question, it specifically affects me as a group, wanting to know this one for a very, very long time. What features will we have with market terminals? If we own them, will we be able to set taxes on transactions?
Oh.
Yes, that's a clear yes, because that's the way markets are going to compete against each other. And like in EVE Online, markets are not a given; they are player made. So you can imagine that a lot of markets are created probably around the arc ship to start with, and they will compete with each other, either by specialization or by the fees. We might actually allow to set fees in a different way, for example, depending on the volume, the number of things traded, or the volume in terms of amount of money. And so you might differentiate your market on that line. We want to have competition possible within the markets, and of course, markets should be a profitable business for whoever is operating it, because it will be costly, because it will require containers, energy, at some point, of course, protection bubbles, or I mean, if it's not in the safe zone. So it will actually be a costly activity, and fees will be the way people are actually going to pay for it. And because they are competing, you will not have absurd fees that would be too high, for example. So that's the way it's going to be. So the markets themselves will work with a mechanism of buy order and sell orders that will be very similar, I think, to EVE Online, so that you can actually sell something either by fulfilling a buy order of somebody who is waiting for your stuff, or by putting a sell order on the market and wait and compete with other people, of course, trying to sell also. So by having a price that is not too far from the the best option that is already there. Uh, so this gets a bit complicated to explain. I mean, but the thing is, markets should be realistic. For people who don't care at all about that, you can just go to a market and say instant sell or instant buy, and they will get the best offer that is available within the the buy and sell orders. So it will be very simple if you don't care about anything like that. But for people more into the economy side, they will be able to manage the markets in a fine size way.
Hmm.
And I mean, I could talk a lot about that, right? So we said we make short questions, but there is the particular way you access physically the markets, how you are going to be able to put whatever you are going to sell inside the markets container. So we might make a dev blog about that, so we give more info, particular
Awesome.
gameplay mechanics. Um, we have to think, basically the challenge here is if your market is very successful, you cannot have a bottleneck. You need to be able to spread access point, right? So you need to have some console or something that is a remote access to your market within the construct that is hosting the market unit.
Awesome.
So
So
we will need more time to talk about that, but yeah.
yeah, definitely. I can't wait to see the blog post on that if you're going to happen to do one.
Okay, well, we're going to work on that. Maybe before the end of the Kickstarter, we try to do something like that. Yes.
Awesome. So next question: will we be able to have lit or animated billboards?
Um, yeah, that makes a lot of sense for people to advertise. So uh, yes, what we are going to be able to make for the release, I don't have a clear plan on that. At minimum, it should be possible that you have a screen, what we call screen units, on which you can write text. That's an easy one, and it could be, of course, Lua scripted. So there could be interesting things going on there. The problem is with a billboard is that if the content of this billboard could be anything, you're basically talking about broadcasting a video to potentially, I don't know, thousands of people who are happening to be nearby and watching it. So it's not easy technology. It's not impossible either, but it's not something we can just say, yeah, yeah, we're going to do it next week. So one easy thing is probably text because it will be just like the chat or anything else, something that we could easily manage and will be actually rich enough and interesting enough so that you can display things. There will be also elements that you can light so that you can switch on and off. Um, and there will be limitations on that as well, because we cannot have, again, for the server reasons, we cannot have, for example, a Lua script that will changing 10,000s of lights in real time all the time, and all this is broadcasted through the servers, right, and then sent to everybody else who is watching. You have 1,000 people watching that big screen. That doesn't scale, at least not with the current state of technology. So we will have to put limitations on the number of things you can send to the server per minute or per second, uh, and or the number of elements that you can have in a certain area. I'm just saying that so you know that they will have some constraints that should be, for all practical purpose, completely okay, but that will limit the extreme cases that you could imagine to do because of those practical server limitations.
Hmm. Okay. Well, for our next question here, will we be able to broadcast to other players, perhaps through a global audio stream, radio station, or in-game video stream, or in my case, maybe a hologram?
Ha! I think it's a bit like the what I just said before. If you broadcast image, it's not a completely easy technology. So we don't have anything planned for that, to answer clearly, in the short term. Now there are also some. I think some companies were providing technologies to do that in game. So we might actually be able to contract these companies and get this kind of technology fairly easily in the game. This has not been investigated yet, um, but I think it would add a lot of immersion. Uh, uh, you know, Quality of the immersion would be better. I'm talking about listening to people around you speaking. If that's the question, you were also talking about uh, having an image of yourself broadcasted to others. These are different things, right? So at least on the side of hearing people who are nearby you, this I'm pretty sure we could probably get this at some point in the game through a third-party technology. Um, and for the rest, we didn't think about it at the moment. So I don't know.
Okay, for our next question, will we be able to hail other players on ships similar to Star Trek?
Well, there will be a way for different constructs to communicate with each other at minima through the chat or an extension of the chat that allows to send messages to definite particular constructs that you can target. That's obvious. You need that. You need to be able to talk to people before, for example, before you shoot at each other. So that's for sure. Now, will we have some kind of big screen that would be super nice for immersion? Um, I don't know. It's the same kind of technology questions that I already mentioned before about transmitting images in real time between an potentially unlimited number of players on both side of the transmission transmission channel. So I can't promise that, at least not in the short term. It definitely is cool, and it would be nice to have, but we didn't think about it properly. To
Okay, awesome. So, next question. What will blueprints look like? Will it tell us details about the resources needed in the blueprints, kind of like it does in Eve? Is it a physical item that can be stored and stolen? Will there be any way to protect our blueprints from being stolen?
Okay, so yes, yes, yes. The blueprints are physical items. You will be able to actually display the materials that are required for them. Kind of obviously, I mean, you need to know what is required to operate it. We may, if we have time, actually add a preview, sort of sort of 3D view of what is the blueprint about. Um, we'll see if we have time to do this, but definitely, yes, the materials and the things that are involved in the blueprints will be displayed, and protecting your blueprints. There's no, I mean, there's it's something that somebody can steal from you, so you have to be very careful. Um, and in blueprints, you will have, I think, like in EVE Online, there will be master blueprints that are, the source of every copy you can make, and copy blueprints with a limited set of runs that you can actually do in series and that you can sell on the markets. So moving around with your master blueprint in your pocket is a very dangerous business. You might actually lose it, you might be killed, or somebody could steal from you. It would not necessarily be the end of the world because you would still be able to rebuild blueprints if you still have a construct that is there. Even if all your constructs are destroyed, there is never any loss of information because you will have things that are call them snapshots that will actually allow you to rebuild your construct, not any construct, but your construct if they are completely destroyed, even if you don't have a blueprint. So it's never the end of the world, but getting your master blueprint copy stolen is something you don't want to happen. So it's a game where you have to be responsible and understand what are the odds. If you have something of value, you have to hide it or protect it, or just make sure that nobody knows that it exists. Things like that. So um, this is the answer. There will be a lot of things to say about that. Blueprints are going to be used in factories that are basically factory units that will come with containers for the materials, and you can actually sort of a slot where you can actually insert your blueprint, um, things like that. So uh, we could talk a lot about this aspect of the game, the blueprint factory thing, but I think it will have several common points with EVE Online in that. Yeah.
Awesome. Sounds amazing. I was a big industrial character in Eve, so blueprints are my thing.
I was also very curious about that.
The interesting thing also is that you can have a specialization between people who are creating blueprints, so they are good at designing stuff, and but they don't know how to mass produce them. They don't have the infrastructure or the logistic agreements with providers of raw materials and so on and so on. So those guys that just sell blueprint copies, and some of the guys just buy them and they don't know how to design things, but they know how to reproduce them and to make them and sell them, right? So this is very exciting to have this idea of specialization between players.
Okay. Well, for our next question, are there going to be stellar anomalies like solar flares and wormholes?
Nothing is planned in the short term. So again, this could be something that comes in an expansion if there's a huge demand from the community. We need to figure out what would be the gameplay meaning of that. If it's just cosmetic, I don't think it's very interesting. So no, we don't have any thought for that. Definitely, I think we could make something really cool, and we could dream about a lot of things. But right now, I don't have a clear answer to give you.
Okay, then.
Okay. Okay, this question is one I've also been wondering about for a very, very long. What are going to be some of the different types of weapon systems we will have available to us in game? For instance, lasers, artillery, missiles, plasma, etc.
Okay, so the way it's going to be organized is there will be different types of damages, and for all these types of damages, you will have different types of armor that you can actually build or shields that you can actually activate. So shield units and the same, it's always based on the idea of elements, and armors is basically different types of materials that you could use to build your ship. So there will be different types of damage, and in front of that, different types of weapons that are more or less efficient for different types of for these different types of damages. The precise names of the weapons, laser, missiles, cannon, and things. Honestly, we have not set that kind of detail. but the gameplay principle is that there will be this trade-off that you have to make. That you cannot have it all. You have to make some choices, either in the offense side or in the defense side. So this is I think it's a fairly standard, game design on that line, and we're going to take a lot of inspiration from games, many games that implement that and in a proper way. We're going to do something fairly standard that makes it very interesting, I think, because there is not, a winner take all situation where you have the optimal configuration. This is very important. You have, to make choices in how you design your offensive or defense chips.
Yeah, I can't wait. I was a
Yes,
mid-Mitar pilot.
oh yeah. And just to say also, uh, we are going to announce soon, I hope, the stretch goals. The ship versus ship combat uh, will be a stretch goal, so it's not something we will necessarily have in the first release. I totally understand. I mean, that this is a defining feature of the game, um, but we have to be careful in what we promise. I totally prefer, to have a game that has a pretty good player versus player combat, that you can actually board a ship and take control of it that way. And we implement later a super well, designed ship versus ship combat, rather than trying to rush everything. So it will depend on how much money we have. It will depend maybe on the time it takes. It's very hard to predict everything. I personally, I would like to have ship versus ship combat, at least in a first iteration of it that makes sense and that is fun in the release. But let's be careful in what we promise.
Exactly. Don't want to end up like some other games.
Mm.
And then on top of that, we're not going to be in space anytime soon. So construct versus construct battles won't really be a thing right at the moment at release. So
Yeah, that's the idea. It will take time to, create a space civilization, planetary civilization, and then interplanetary civilization and inter galactic. No, not galactic. There's only one, yeah, one galaxy. Inter solar system civilization.
yeah. All right. So for the next question, are we going to have working shield systems? Will they be modular based or a single construct?
What do you mean by modular based?
Something to where you have multiple different elements that project a shield at varying degrees.
Um, the, the idea for the moment is that you have a shield unit that is going to create a shield around your shield. We don't have more thoughts at the moment for that. Um, what you mean is that you would need to have several shield units that covers a certain area before it becomes effective or something like that.
I
Correct.
think I
Well,
think what this question is about is if, like in Star Trek, when they're in a battle, of when they can say things like, power to the forward shields, or
I see. Well, we have not thought about that, and I think the first iteration of this feature, when it gets implemented, will be, global shield. Um, but it's interesting. We could think about it. Yeah, I don't know. We okay. This is a typical example of a feature we didn't think about, but yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
Everything, that makes the combat more complex, more emergent, that you have all these different things to take care of. So you need one guy in the front, one guy in the back. Those things are going in the right direction. So the thing we would avoid is that you could be alone piloting a huge ship all by yourself. We will make it so that this is either incredibly inefficient, or simply impossible.
Okay. Well, here I have another question for you. How are stargates made? Are they a single construct or something made with voxels instead?
Okay, so this is something we could ask also about factories and different types of functional structures. Um, the way it's going to be done is that there's a construct on which there is a particular element. So in the case of a factory, it's a factory unit. For a Stargate, I don't know, Stargate unit. We'll find a nice name and so on. But this unit is providing the functionality. Um, the the thing is, for things like Stargates or even factories, for which there is a notion of volume or area that could be involved in the functionality itself, right? The factory as a frame within which the particular construct is going to be built, and a Stargate presumably has a sort of a surface that you have to cross to actually go through the Stargate, things like that. We will look into the possibility of having this volume or space materialized by shapes created by voxels. So we would check that there's a connexity only for that. So it would be a limited example of this calculation where we have to actually check that everything is connected and so on. And then we would probably have the functionality conditioned to the fact that the proper voxels with the proper materials are actually deployed. So there will be a bit of building involved to make it functional. I think this is a good idea, and it's not benchmarked, so we have to check whether this works well. But it's probably a good idea. And the side effect that is interesting is that you could disable a Stargate by breaking, um, let's say, a certain amount of this voxel structure. So this is interesting. You just don't blow the Stargate unit or the factory unit. You can actually disable the structure in voxel. So okay, this is something we are currently thinking about. Um, but the short answer is that everything is always about the construct and the particular set of elements that are needed on this construct. That applies also to markets, markets unit, same idea. Um, so we try to use always these simple concepts to build everything.
Okay, for the next question, this one also has me wondering. What will be some of the ways power can be generated and stored? For instance, starting with fossil fuels, nuclear, and solar power, then maybe working towards some of the more exotic forms of generating, like fusion or generating energy with 0 point energy.
Yeah, well, I think we just discussed industrial craft, and I think this is the inspiration we will look into. Like you have different machines, so in our terms, it's elements that will be able to produce electricity either from fuel. So you will have to have a fuel plus this generator, or from the sun. So we will have to detect whether there is light on it, and this electricity can be consumed right away or can be stored into batteries. This kind of mechanism will make its way into the gameplay once we implement the energetic aspect. It might be very simplified at the beginning. Um, we will see how far we can go. But the core idea is to gamify a complex chain of production of energy, and that you can actually store energy either in batteries, which will have their limitations, or sort of implicitly within fuel. Fuel that can be more and more powerful. So yes, they could be, in principle, you could have some fuels that are incredibly powerful, like nuclear fuel. But in that case, if we do it properly, then we would have this kind of fuel would actually generate heat, and you will have to transfer heat to some particular elements that are capable of transforming heat into electricity. So this kind of refinement, so you have to build a chain that is not completely obvious. I mean, it's not complicated, but I mean, it's not just you put something in and you get electricity out. You would have to build some generator, and it should be big. So powerful things will be big, so they would be large, um, things like that. So it's not a very precise answer because we still have to work on the details of this part of the gameplay. But the direction we want to go is that one.
Mm.
Okay. So, next question. Moving right along. These are the last three, by the way. And
Okay,
then, if you're willing to stay just a little bit longer, I think we got a couple of questions from chat, but
great.
that's completely up to you.
Well, that's fine. Let's do this.
All right. So, what are the resources going to be? Will there be real resource types, such as from the periodic table, or is there going to be fictional or a combination thereof?
Most likely a combination, because if you want to sort of explain certain amazing sources of power or technologies or things like that, it's much easier to invoke the some kind of magic material that is not yet discovered, but that explains somehow that we're able to do this kind of things. So there will be a mix of familiar things like copper, iron, and so on, and some more exotic materials that are the explanation also of the sort of the tech you have, and also that will be extremely difficult to find. So that will give there will be different. Of course, everything will be generated procedurally, but according to statistical signatures that will make things more or less difficult to find. Some materials will be not available on the area of planets, so basically you need to go to other planets to start to find them. This is also a way we are going to stage technological progress in a completely soft way, simply because you don't have the materials to unlock certain blueprints or certain schemas before you have built your first ships to go to the next planet. So this is the way it's going to be.
Awesome.
So two more questions.
Yes, sir. Or okay. Guess I'll ask it. So next question: will we be able to automate ship production? How will blueprints be made, and how will blueprints interface with shipyards for automated production?
I think this is related to what I said before about automation and the risk to make this particular activity meaningless for players, because it's so efficient to automate that nobody is actually doing it. So it kills this part of the gameplay effectively, um, and so I'm not sure how we are going to allow people to automate the production. um, if it is, it has to be thought about, in the direction of what I'm saying, that it should be still uh, meaningful for people to produce by themselves. So I don't think so. I think it would be more like, first of all, I mean, the building of a large ship will take time. It's not like you put a blueprint, you press a button, and poof, you have your thing. So it will take sometimes a lot of time. So automating um, will not be so decisive in that case, because you always have time to press the button again if it's every week or so. So that's one part of the answer. And I think I would rather have a set of players who are dedicated to running a factory set, rather than everything managed, so that it's, well, okay, you're happy the first time you see your thing working, and afterwards you're not interested, and then the production is so efficient that you flood all the markets. And uh, we need somehow to keep the principle that the volume of production and also the amount of money in the economy is somehow related to the number of players. See, so this is I think a property that is a good one to maintain the equilibrium. So I would
Okay.
tend to say no for automation, at least. Well, definitely not for release, and we'll see later.
Okay.
Okay.
So
Okay, for our last thought and conclusion, can you provide us a few hints of some of the technologies we might see in the game?
Oh, okay. Well, there are many directions we could discuss about that. One of the things we would like to do, uh, hopefully very soon, is to have different types of engines that will have different different area of functioning. To be clear, engines that works in atmospheres, engines that works in space, engines that works in both atmosphere and space, but they are not really practical if you are either always in space or always in atmosphere, so they will be used for transition. um, this kind of technologies with, of course, different sizes of engines for each kind of technology. You could imagine to have a ship that is equipped with different engines, with that you switch on and off depending on where you are. So these kind of things we find very interesting. Um, there will be about the what can I say? Uh, I know. I mean, everything we mentioned, the stargates and all those things that will come at some point will be also tech that will be unlocked by skills. Also, there will be skills associated to the capacity of operating different engines or different elements, radar, weapons. So you might be actually becoming a bit more efficient in using these different elements depending on the skills you have. It might be that you are not able to operate a control unit that is connected to certain elements that you do not have the skills for. Control units themselves will be also ranked with different levels that corresponds to, for example, how many elements you can plug in them and potentially script together. There will be different types of control units. Some of them will be dedicated to piloting. Some others will be more generic, so you can plug all sorts of elements on them, while the piloting one would be more about engines and gyroscopes and things like that. So these are some elements, but it's pretty much impacting the whole gameplay. So we could talk for hours about this. Um, if you have a precise question, maybe I can answer. But maybe what you're asking is about the skill tree also, and the idea is that skills will be associated to everything you do, and you will be able to improve what you do by a very small amount, but nevertheless improve depending on the skills you train.
That is a satisfying answer.
Great.
Pretty satisfying. Pretty satisfying. So that was the last of our official questions. Did you want to go ahead and wrap up now, or you got couple more minutes to hang out with us?
Well, let's go. Let's go. Yeah.
All right, all right. We do have a couple of community questions from the chat, and then so I'll go ahead and start these off. They can be just yes or no because a couple of these are just yes or no, pretty much.
Okay.
The first one is mining ships. Will we have
No.
them, or will it be by hand?
No. For the reasons I mentioned before, I think it would
Okay.
kill mining. It would kill mining for people, I
And
suppose. So, or it would be so crippled that I don't know, people would complain about them. So probably no.
yeah, it really would be a little bit overpowered. All right. Is there a possibility for offline protection?
That means that you would have this protection extremely simplified as like an action reaction that would be handled by the server. So short answer is no for the moment, but it's not completely ruled out in the long term. We need to make this controlled in terms of how much CPU this is going to use. Definitely not Lua script on the server side. Um, so um, it's something interesting and tempting. At the very least, if some of your construct is attacked, um, you will be notified and you will know about it. And if you have a protection bubble, you will have a certain delay during which the protection bubble is indestructible, that you have time to react. These kind of things will be, as soon as there is combat, will have to be implemented.
Awesome. All right. Next one. Will the when might Lua script be in game?
They will be right away in game because we have already implemented that. So the thing that might not be and will certainly not be, I think, in game at the beginning is all the UI for you to actually write the code inside the game, debug the code, and all those. So it might be that you just have to open a file on the side of the game that is in certain part of your in your path, on the computer. So this will be very hardcore, it's kind of mod-like kind of way of handling the script. This is almost certain because we already have it, but um, having the proper implementation of that in game will take a bit of time, I think.
Awesome.
Cool.
And last one, will ships behave the same way as those in StarMade, where they don't have to be physically connected to each other,
I'm sorry. What do you mean
or
physically?
they don't have to be physically connected? That's the question from the chat. So I'm guessing. Oh, in
I think
StarMade,
I
go
think
ahead.
I see what you mean. If I have a long ship and in the middle I break the voxels, right?
Hmm.
So if you look at the ship, it's separated into two parts.
Correct.
Will it remain as a whole? And the answer is yes, because of what I mentioned, before. Uh, the way to implement something that would break is computationally very heavy. Wouldn't match with our model because everything that moves 3D in the game is a construct in our implementation. And so if you cut a ship into two parts that could possibly move freely, you're effectively you're creating two constructs, which is doesn't fit at all in our, the way things are handled, because then, who is managing those constructs? And what if you break it into 100 parts? So then you get 100 constructs. Constructs will be relatively expensive and things that, should not proliferate in huge numbers. Um, so that would break all these assumptions. So no, no, shapes are, in a whole, and it's okay. I watched the other day. I watched a sci-fi movie. I don't remember the name. I mean, it was not the other day. It was like 1 year ago. Sorry, I don't remember it. But uh, there were beautiful ships. It was very nice from the artistic direction point of view, and some of those ships were made of several parts that were basically floating around. And why not? It's pretty good. I think some people will actually use this to create beautiful ships that are surprising and not the usual block ship that you see in every other game. So maybe that's actually very good.
Yeah, I could
Yeah,
definitely see that.
I could
Remember that?
definitely do some
Remember
stuff with
that
that.
movie? Anyone? What was it?
Mm,
Was it Ender's
I
Game?
would have to have a name or something to go off of. I think I know the movie that you're talking about, but I can't remember exactly what movie it is. I know they did something similar to that in Stargate.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's possible.
Or
But that was
Ender's
not
Game?
Star. That was not Stargate. That was not Ender's Game. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But I mean, uh, so that was my answer for that. No, things will be disconnected and still part of the same construct.
All right.
Can
We
do
we need
some
to we need to come up with a scientific explanation. Like there is an invisible glue that something. I don't know, but that's a hard technical constraint. Oh, that's the end.
That actually works out perfectly.
Yeah,
All right,
yeah.
good. We have an alarm. Say that up much.
All
All
right,
right, there.
JC. Well,
Okay.
thanks so much for coming and joining us here.
Well, thank you for having me. It's really great to have a chance to discuss about the game. I'm sorry I cannot give always definite answers and sure things that but as I explained, we want to be very both transparent and careful about what we promise. What I can promise is that if this game has a long life and if it's a big success, if you guys make it a big success, we will go very far. There will be no limit to how far we can go and how many things we can do in this world. It's just certain things will be impossible for technical reasons, right? But in terms of gameplay, there's a lot of good ideas we could implement in the long run. I'm talking about 5 to 10 years perspective to evolving this universe. Um, so I'm pretty excited about the future of what this could become. The first virtual online civilization built by players themselves. We've been waiting for that kind of thing. I think you would agree for many years, and I think it was just not possible technically. The kind of technology we use, many of them were not there 5 years ago. Um, the algorithms we have developed are pretty complex, and it's not something that you easily find when you want to solve this problem. So there's a barrier there. Um, so there's a moment where things becomes possible, and I think this is the time now where we could try to really make this happen. So I'm very excited, and thank you very much, guys, for having me. Thank you for everybody who's pledging at the moment on the Kickstarter. Uh, we've been talking for 1 hour and a half and a bit more, and we are now at 312,000. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Yes,
thank
thank
you.
you.
Getting close
Ma-
to to 4,500 backers. That's a lot of people.
That
Yes.
is
And
is.
we are privileged to be one of them.
Well, and again, thank you so much. We want to keep talking with you guys and have as much interaction as possible. I think a lot of the ideas that we are finally going to implement in the long-term vision. I believe they will come from the community. I spend some time. I don't have enough time, but I spend some time to read the forums, and I read all these ideas that are sometimes explained with great details. This is a mine of ideas. Not all of them are doable or necessarily good, but I believe in this collective intelligence that can bring some astonishing good ideas on the surface. We will have to select. We will have to you know use our judgment on this. It's not like anything that comes will be implemented, obviously, but yeah, I believe that exchanging with the community of players is the right way to go.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So, if anyone is in the chat is interested, I'm not sure about JC, but the rest of us are going to stick around for a little bit, hang out. And if you want to join us in Discord, you're more than welcome. And I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the stream.
All right. Well, thank you. And as I used to say now, see you soon in Dual Universe.
Absolutely.
Indeed.
We hope to see you all there too.